Good day, and welcome to the Business and Enterprise Systems Mission Success Podcast, where we give you bits and bytes about BES news and other topics of interest. Today, we have a very special guest, Mr. George Sarmiento, who is the Supervisory Program Manager for Contracting Information Technology, also what we call CON-IT. So, Mr. Sarmiento, good day to you, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Glad to have you here today. We're so excited about this conversation. We've been wanting to have this for a while. But just to get started, tell us, what is CON-IT? What does it do?
Sure. CON-IT is the next generation contract writing system for the Department of the Air Force. It's built on an Appian low-code BPM platform. It's been designated by the Air Force as the enterprise solution for the Air Force. What that means is we're replacing numerous legacy systems out there that are involved in contracting, and CON-IT is going to be the solution. It's built on Appian, which is basically a case management type tool. For example, other users of the legal community, they'll have a legal case, and that's private and contained. Medical community is the same. So for the contract writing, each case is going to be a contract. So it works really well in the contracting community. With this as an enterprise solution, it's going to standardize acquisition contract writing across the Air Force. It's going to drive some efficiency because we'll all be on the same system. It's going to reduce costs and training. And one of the big beauties is it's going to enable us to add a new capability easily using the Appian workflow process.
Okay, so tell us about the history. How did we get here? Where did CON-IT come from?
Yeah, that's a great question. So back, I'd say it's right around 2014, 2015, there was an old system called Standard Procurement System, which was getting older, highly expensive to maintain. So OSD decided, hey, everybody needs to retire their standard procurement systems. So the Air Force went on and started to do some market research, starting to look at different potential solutions. And one that they discovered was a tool called Ideas. It was for DISA, and it was managed by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, believe it or not. They have a service that's called the Enterprise Architecture Service, and they actually manage 10 IT programs for the federal government. And one of them was this Ideas program, which actually met like 75% of the requirements we had to replace SPS. So the Air Force adopted it and started to make the changes necessary to make it an Air Force solution for operational contracting. And I say operational contracting because that's really the more basic type contracting, base level, where they might order supplies, office supplies, those type things. So those are not major contracts, but it enabled the Air Force to sunset the standard procurement system in 2020. And we were the only service that actually met the deadline and was able to retire the use of standard procurement service. So that was a big win for the Air Force.
Okay, so okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so I was just going to add that so it was well received. Everyone liked it. So now they've challenged us to sunset the next contract writing system, which is CON-IT. And CON-IT is a system that supports a lot of the major weapon systems, research and development organizations, as well as disconnected, what we call disconnected users, basically those working in a classified environment. So that's been our challenge the last couple of years since 2020. I'm glad to announce by next year, we should be able to support all the weapon systems contracting. So we will be able to buy airplanes and satellites and those big acquisitions using CON-IT.
Wow.
Over.
So there's a lot of growth going on just within this program. So describe to us the end users, the people who are using this day to day. What is the benefit that they're experiencing with CON-IT?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So there's really multiple users, but the big advantage for using Appian is it's really because the processes are built into Appian, the workflows. You can streamline where it makes sense. We can make changes where it makes sense. And because it's a lot of the data follows what we call the procure to pay process, there's a standard that CON-IT is the only contract writing system across the DoD and other agencies that follows the procurement data standard fully. So what does that mean? That basically means that it interacts with other systems that are also following the standard. So it's all automated. So when it's automated, these handshakes work really well to remove any manual hand jamming that goes on today, which unfortunately leads to errors. So one of the big benefits is there's less errors, there's less inconsistencies, and because the system actually interfaces with other systems that put legal and regulatory requirements out there, the clauses, for example, that all comes in automatically, doesn't require anybody doing a copy paste or typing other things in. So those are some of the real benefits of the system. But so how does it really help the contract specialist, for example? For him, it's the interfaces, makes it easier to use. The graphic user interface on CON-IT is much nicer than CON-WRITE. And for those with disabilities, it's completely 508 compliant, which means with disabilities, there's different features on there that anyone can use it, any of the contract specialists. For management, because of this automated data, it's easy for them to see from their desk what all their buyers are doing and get a status on all the contracts. So that's a nice little feature. For other reviewers like legal or financial, if they want to check the contract and see how things are going, they can easily go into the file, into the case contract file, and get an update. So it's beautiful. And for senior leadership, because the data is all totally I will say more accurate than it is using other systems. They get a better view of how the money's being spent, what's being bought, which really all leads to FM's big desire to try and get a better ability to close the ledger at the end of the year. Where did we spend the money? What did we buy? And do that traceability. So there's a lot of benefits for multiple users using CON-IT.
Okay, that's very user-friendly then. So how many end users are there?
Yeah, great question. When we started the base operational contracting and stuff, we had about 4,000 users around the globe using CON-IT. So all the bases basically at the operational level. But we started these limited deployments as we add capabilities, and we've been adding we add capabilities every 3 weeks to CON-IT, trying to get to that sunset CON-WRITE date. As we add capability, more program offices can use CON-IT. So as they use, as more start to use, we obviously add more users. And we're now, I'd say about 5,300 users today of CON-IT. So we've added almost 1,300 users in the last year and a half.
Wow. Wow. I know that.
And we hope to, and we hope to get to about 10,000 users.
Okay. Wow. That's significant growth. So do you have a time frame that you want to experience that growth to reach that 10,000 users?
Yeah, so that for CON-WRITE, there's about 2,750 users, and we've added about half of them. So we hope by 2025 to have all the CON-WRITE users on there. So that'll be nice. Now, there's another system called ACPS, which is a logistics system, and they interface with a lot of different systems that we're not connected to yet. So they're on our roadmap for about 2027, and that'll be another couple of thousand users there. So as we continue to grow, and you'll hear more about it a little bit later, but the success has really led to other agencies really coming in wanting to use CON-IT. So that's been real exciting.
Yeah, I look forward to talking about that more. I know we're going to be speaking with one of your teammates here soon, but obviously this is set up to solve problems. This is a solution. So what are some of the problems that CON-IT has been solving? What are some of the needs that CON-IT is addressing?
Yeah, so I talked about a few, like reducing errors, making it easier for the contract specialist. So there's many problems that we're working on one at a time, but there's a couple of big ones that I'd really like to talk to. And one is the legacy systems that we're replacing. Back in 2021, CON-IT actually failed here at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. It's a decentralized system. So for a couple of months, they had to work a connection to another base, and people had to work off hours in order to issue contract awards for 2 months. So as that system gets older, that may happen again, and that's kind of the urgency that we face in the program office to try and get this done and fielded as soon as possible. Another big one is security. CON-IT was 1990, ASIPS was even before that. So when our adversaries come up with solutions on how to attack the system, those older legacy systems really struggle to try and get any of those security updates to protect our information. Whereas our next generation CON-IT with just fielded and gets updates quarterly, we can handle those updates with no problem. So from a security reason side, we're really excited about that. But really, the third one I kind of touched on already is the financial. This procurement data standard where we can talk from one system to another system and they're automatic handshakes and the data flows through and no one's touching it. That's really a huge plus for us in terms of once all the systems are on the same standard and we're going along, it will be much easier to balance the books per se. My colleague who's going to talk later, he likes to talk about basically on a personal level, when you use your credit card, the credit card has that transaction, your bank knows about the transaction, and everything's balanced out once it's paid off. It's not that easy in the government, and that's one of the things we're trying to get to. So those are the three big ones.
Getting more into the technical side, tell us about the benefits of low-code development and how the Appian platform is really the best vehicle for CON-IT.
Yeah. So from my perspective, it turns out I was actually part of the initial assessment team back in 2014 timeframe, looking at different potential solutions. And one of the things that really got us excited about Appian was this case management perspective they were using. And it was a brand new company at the time. So it was hard to get people on board at the time, but really, once you build in the workflows and it increases efficiency, it automates and streamlines the business processes, which again reduces the manual intervention, which minimizes errors. And so it really increases efficiency, but it also improves collaboration. Because as I mentioned, like the financial folks, the other folks, they can all reach in and see the contract status at any time and work on it together, which is a big improvement. It also enhances visibility. When I talk about business intelligence reports for our leaders, it's easy for them to have access and see both from a management level, how's your team doing, and from the senior level, even higher up, how's everyone doing on their contract status. So it's great visibility that way. And what we do from a technical side is all these processes, we actually track how long each process is taking. So we know where to make improvements when we start to see slowdowns in the system. And we're always trying to make the system go faster because nobody likes that spinning wheel, right? So we try and do everything in seconds to make sure the users get the answers they need. And also from the technical side is flexibility. Because it's low code and we build in these processes, if OSD comes down and says, hey, we need to change one of the processes, we got a new handshake under the procurement data standard, we need to change some things, that's a relatively easy change. And it's really impactful when we start working, when other agencies get interested in CON-IT. We all have different terminology. So even though the core CON-IT will be the same, they can change their graphic user interface to make it work and mean what they think versus what the Air Force calls it. So there's a lot of advantages to that flexibility. And like I mentioned, the development is relatively quickly once it's in place to make changes. So those are really the big ones: efficiency, collaboration, visibility, and flexibility.
In the development team, you guys are all located at WritePad, is that correct?
Oh, no. Good question. Good question. So our vendor, we actually have a contract with a company called Synergy, and they've been doing good work the last couple of years. But it used to be everyone pre-COVID, everyone was in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Okay.
During COVID, it just expanded as people found they could work remote. So you've heard a lot of the IT teams, they go in more remote, because they can do their coding from anywhere.
Right.
So for your info, I've got people in Boston, people in California, people in Idaho, and people in Florida, and all across the country.
Oh, wow.
So we've got four development teams. They're all spread across the country. The Scrum Masters are in different locations. The release train managers in a different location. So it takes a lot of coordination, a lot of planning using Teams software, but we're getting it done.
Clearly, that is so interesting to hear. I didn't realize you guys were that spread out. So,
yes, but the program office is pretty much at WritePad,
right?
But the developers are not.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So tell us, anybody who's watching this, listening, how can they find out more about CON-IT and how maybe as a vendor they can benefit from it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably BES, our home office down in Montgomery. They hold industry days several times a year, and we're present there to answer any questions. They can always reach out to them. They can reach out to the program office as well. I can be found on LinkedIn. It's an easy find. BES is on LinkedIn, and just send me an email. We've got a good team. We respond quickly, and it's pretty fun. So I'm excited. In the next one, hopefully in the next episode, you'll hear a little bit about all the different folks who are trying to pick up on CON-IT and all the fun activities going forward, Jonathan. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, I really appreciate your time today. And to everyone, thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the BES Mission Success Podcast. At BES, we run the systems that run the Air Force, moving money, manpower, and materiel. Until next time.
Exactly. Thank you, sir.